In the center of Demak, the meeting held by Raden Trenggana has ended. At the beginning of that evening, Raden Trenggana sat in a room located inside the Demak Palace building. He looked alternately at the two high-ranking officials in front of him. Once upon a time he took a deep breath. Raden Trenggana got up and said, "Isn't it right for me to punish those who oppose me?" The two people exchanged glances, then someone of Tumengung rank answered, "That's appropriate, Raden." Raden Trenggana stared intently at the face of the person who gave the answer. Then asked again, "What is your reason for being able to say this?" "Ki Tumengung Wilaguna, Raden." It was an obligation for every duke and high-ranking officials in the duchies who were subordinate to Majapahit to submit to Demak. Meanwhile, at this time, Raden was the successor to Majapahit's power, answered Ki Tumengung Wilaguna. "Isn't there another reason?" Raden Trenggana looked at him with probing eyes. Ki Tumengung Wilaguna was silent for a moment, then answered, "Of course, because one of my guesses is that they feel stronger than Demak." "How could they feel stronger than Demak?" "While the Demak troops have succeeded in forcing the Eastern Duchy to submit. Or do you have another intention with meaning of power?" Raden Trenggana tried to suppress the turbulent feelings in his chest. He did not expect Ki Tumengung Wilaguna to be able to see a side that he had never thought of at all. That power is the sharpness of reason that they have. "Raden," said Kipati Kusumanegara, who was the same age as Raden Fata and became his advisor while he was still alive, "I feel like someone who is unable to think with the opinions you express. As if the submission of several duchies is material to laugh at me," said Raden Trenggana angrily. "Forgive us, Raden. I didn't mean it like that. There is a basis for suspicion. There are several circumstances. The first is that their resistance did not at all show their true strength. How could Surabaya be subdued in less than a day? After Surabaya declared its submission, they also did not send envoys to Demak or ask us to place people there," said Ki Tumengung Wilaguna. Then he continued. "Secondly, they also did not ask for considerations, or provide information to Demak to prepare steps forward. Moreover, we all know that blue-eyed foreigners have been scattered along the northern coast." Raden Trenggana looked at him sharply. He sighed. "I must admit that your opinion is correct. So I also feel right with this decision. The decision to force Blambangan to acknowledge and submit to Demak," said Raden Trenggana in a high tone. For a moment he suppressed his feelings and then said, "However, I must have enough materials to be able to force them to completely surrender to Demak." Kipati Kusumanegara looked at each other with Ki Tumengung Wilaguna. Then Kipati said, "I can send people to Jepara to ask them to prepare the ships that will take us to Panarukan faster." "Do we need to ask for help from Sayaban?" asked Ki Tumengung Wilaguna. "No. I do not want to involve Sayaban in this battle," Raden Trenggana firmly answered. "Then what answer will Raden give if Sayaban asks about the developing situation?" Kipati asked with a frown. "Uncle Pati, I will tell them that this is all an unfinished family matter, and I am sure they will understand. Because that is the reality that the dukes in the eastern region are the younger brothers of Demak," said Raden Trenggana before pausing for a moment. Then with a little bit of anger he hissed, "And it was only right for an elder brother to punish them." For some time afterward, the three men worked out the steps that needed to be taken after the reports from the code officers and liaisons in each duchy had been collected. The discussion lasted until past midnight. Once, times Raden Trenggana asked to test the strategy proposed by his two subordinates. Raden Trenggana really did not want to experience defeat in his movement towards Panarukan. He did not want the embarrassing event to happen to him. The opinions of Kipati Kusumanegara and Ki Tumengung Wilaguna expressed at the beginning of the discussion really opened his insight into new strategies. "I think you should invite Adipati Pajang to discuss this plan. At least his presence can add to the insight and capabilities that already exist in Demak." Kipati Kusumanegara made a suggestion. Ki Tumengung Wilaguna nodded his head in agreement with the aged Kipati's proposal. "All right, Kipati. I accept Kipati's proposal. As soon as possible, I will send a messenger to Pajang. We will continue this conversation after I get the latest report on the ability of the soldiers and preparations in Jepara." Raden Trenggana closed the meeting. After the departure of Kipati Kusumanegara and Kichumengung Wilaguna, Raden Trenggana summoned the leader in charge of the cipher officers, Kichumengung Suro Diligo. A moment later a sharp-eyed man of similar age stood before him. Before I tell you what you will be responsible for, tell me what you know about the situation towards Pajang. Kichumengung Suro Diligo, said Raden Trenggana. Kisuro Diligo took a moment to compose himself, then replied, the roads and the surroundings are not dangerous. That is the information from the cipher officer. He paused for a moment. Then he said further, although the cipher officers said so, I cannot fully believe the truth of their statement. What happened in the cipher troop you commanded? Nothing, Raden. Then why do you say you cannot be sure of the veracity of the statements of your officers? Raden Trenggana's forehead wrinkled. He changed his seat and said, all right. Let's put your doubts in a broader scope so that I can understand from another perspective. Kichumengung Suro Diligo took a deep breath. Then he said, that's what they told me. And as their leader, I must accept their report. However, I also have other ways that can be used as a comparison for every report that arrives in front of me. Raden Trenggana caught the doubt on Kichumengung Suro Diligo's face. He pondered for a moment, then said, Kichumengung, there is nothing wrong if you tell me the cause of your doubt. I'm sure there will be a way out if you also say the report that you consider as a comparison. He took a deep breath. With his eyes looking straight into Kisuro Diligo's face, Raden Trenggana said again firmly, I do not doubt your loyalty. Or perhaps you have received more important information. Kisuro Diligo's heart beat faster with Raden Trenggana's last question. Actually, he had heard the hidden plans of the cipher officers. However, Kisuro Diligo has not been able to take any important action because the information, in his opinion, is still unclear even though it has begun to shake the joints of the military system. Raden, he said later. Presumably Kichumengung would speak carefully so that Raden Trenggana would not misunderstand and make the wrong decision. Kichumengung continued, I received different information from the cipher officers in charge of every inch of territory between Demak and Pajang. I have heard that there are warrior leaders who have different wishes from Raden. But I still found it difficult to penetrate the thick wall between us. I have traced the truth of the news after receiving reports. To this day, I have to admit that they really have a careful calculation on every news they spread. Raden Trenggana listened with a furrowed brow. Occasionally he took a deep breath. Raden Trenggana was still wondering about the figure Kichumengung Suro Diligo was referring to. Then Raden Trenggana asked, what is the basis for your thinking that they are very capable in making calculations? Currently, in my observation, some warrior groups are starting to experience small frictions. What I mean is that the warrior groups now no longer have the sense of togetherness in layers that they had in the past or a few months ago. Kichumengung Suro Diligo felt his voice tremble differently than usual. Once again, there was worry in his heart if his statement would make Raden Trenggana angry. Are they making bad news about me? Asked Raden Trenggana. No, they didn't. Did they spread fear among my people? Raden Trenggana asked again. No, they didn't. Then what did they say? Raden Trenggana closed the question. They repeated your words about the planned invasion of the East. Then they included a number of questions that were actually difficult for the soldiers to answer. And it was precisely the difficulty of answering those questions that made the soldiers' joints crack. Some warriors even dared to disobey the orders of Aranga.
Thus our togetherness for now. See you again in the continuation of the story of the conquest of Panarukan. Rahayu.